You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. Obviously, the NBA season is now concluded, and yes, it did go out without a bang. It went with a whimper. But that being said, there's plenty to talk about in terms of legacies for both the Golden State Warriors and LeBron James. And in order to discuss this, it's not just going to be me on today's show. It will also be Matt Hanley. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Of course. And we went down to watch the game, and that will be the last game I watched in Australia for quite some time. And we went to the casino and watched it. And what a glorious display that was, huh? I have never seen, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong here, and tell me if I'm being too harsh, but I have never seen a quote-unquote big-time performer roll over so easily and so willingly in maybe one of the more defining moments of his career. You would at least thought, at home, down 3-0 to his arch-rival, in maybe his last home game in his home state, the state that he grew up, that he would have put up a little bit more of a fight. He took 13 shots. Matt, tell me if I'm being too harsh.
Oh, I mean, we just saw it.
Yeah.
It was so anticlimactic, just like unbelievable. The thing was, it's about to start with Cleveland, the team that ranked 29th in defense during the year.
Wait. Just so the audience knows, we are in front of a computer, but we're both sitting at a table. Matt is not looking that up, so for him to know that 29th, then well done.
Well,
it's good.
I mean, it's the fact of the matter is, it was a disappointing, completely surrender.
They gave up, man. They threw in that white towel straight away. And you said when we were watching it, you thought it was over in the first quarter. Now, I had a little bit more hope to it. So, for everyone says that I'm a hater of LeBron and everything, I actually thought that he would show up in this game. He didn't show up in this game. And the Steph Curry came out. He was throwing haymakers.
From the beginning, that first shot where JR bounced into him, no call, and he just nailed that. You knew that was a bad sign for the Cavs.
But even though that happened, right, and they were hitting their shots. I mean, Draymond Green hit a 3 in the corner. There was signs early on that this was going to be a blowout, but they were only down by 5 points. They actually had the lead at some points in the first and second quarters. And I kept pointing it out to you. I said, Matt, look, this game's a lot closer than it should be. It should be about a 20, 25-point game, and it's a 2 or 3 point game.
Yeah.
So you're right about the start, but boy, it's like there's just no fight. And that's what's so disappointing. And people want to talk about his comparisons with Jordan. I don't want to get too into that because he's not worthy of that. But let's go down the other echelon of players, right? The Allen Iversons, the Paul Pierces. We're talking from anywhere from 30 to 50 of the greatest players of all time, number 30 to number 50.
Yes. And
you just expect a little bit more fight. You would expect this kind of performance if you're down 3-1 or 3-0 on the road. But you're at home, in your home state, in your last game as a Cav, probably.
More than likely.
Yeah, in that uniform. I mean, just don't get swept. That's all you've got to have. That's the mentality you've got to have. And we got so bored through it, we actually accumulated his winning percentage, not the overall series wins and losses. So obviously he's what now, 3-6 now?
Yeah.
What a glorious that's a beautiful number, is it not? But he's 3-6 in the finals. But we actually tallied it up, all the wins and losses from that, and it was he has. What was it? 14 wins?
14 wins.
Out of 48 finals games. 14 wins out of 48 finals games. That is less than 30%. That tells me that he has gotten slammed so badly in the finals on a consistent basis. I mean, less than 30%?
You can't even round up.
What do you round it up to? It goes down. It's like, man, it was unbelievable, and we were laughing at it.
Well, you don't hear that. You don't hear those kind of numbers.
Oh, but you hear how many times he's got a 36, 8, and 2 in it.
Triple doubles.
Off right stats, yeah.
Triple doubles. It's incredible. And great, amazing performances stats wise, but yeah, like there was no heart at all. It was just essentially rolling over. He just rolled over and accepted it, and I really, to me, and I've been harping on this, their defense. They just never. LeBron, as leader of the team, the boy from Akron, home state hero, never once set the standard for playing defense
Or accountability, yeah.
You know, the one thing you can count on, the one thing that's outside of control of the refs or shots going in,
It's
whatever,
effort.
it's effort.
Yeah.
And the effort is mostly seen on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
This whole series we saw, Cavs, Warriors set a pick 35 feet up from the...
By Steph Curry.
Steph Curry sets a pick on LeBron, and he just meekly switches on to him.
Switched.
You know, it's like, well, Kevin Love, you handle Durant.
Or George Hill, or,
Anybody else.
Jordan Clarkson.
Yeah.
It's disappointing to watch. It's so disappointing to watch because I said this to you there, and I said, this guy has all the physical gifts to be an incredible defender, maybe the best defender of all time. Because physically, he has all the characteristics to play all.
Look
five
at his
positions.
athletic talent. I mean,
Yeah.
his talent, he's got it all. The guy's probably 6'10". You see it on the offensive end, for sure. You see he's
The
gonna
strength and the
score,
quickness and the explosiveness.
everything.
Yep.
You know, he gets a few chase down blocks. He gets a few help side. Makes big flashy plays, but
I tell you what, though, all that's pretty and it's cute, right? But
it's a stat.
But you look at how teams target him. Whoever is guarding him, they go at him, and that tells you right then that he's a weak defender.
Yeah.
And I don't know where he goes from here. Quite honestly, I don't really care that much. I know everybody's going to be talking about that. I tell you what, we'll talk about it at the end of the show. Let's talk about the Warriors, Matt. And I said this to you during the game. They are really, for all the negative things that I've said about them, and I stand by. Believe me, I really do stand by them. But they are one game away from having a forfeit. If they didn't lose if they didn't lose Game 5 or Game 6 or Game 7 of 2016 finals, they've just won 4 in a row. Yeah. What's your take on it? I know you're a big fan of them relatively speaking, in comparison to me.
Yeah.
You're a big fan.
I do appreciate their style of play because I like a guy like Steph Curry he's unselfish, but he also puts a lot of pressure on the defense. You can't leave him once he crosses the half court line. You have to account for him. The guy is 6'3". If I stood next to him, he'd probably look pretty imposing. But out there on the court, he is among the smaller players on the floor. He's
relatively short. Yeah, in the NBA,
he's not a big guy.
Yeah,
but he always gets switched out onto LeBron, and he always, the height, the size difference. It takes a lot of heart for him to body up and get elbowed in the face like he did today.
Yeah.
And just...
he's tough. There's no question about his toughness. I remember their first championship run where he got, when they played Houston in the conference finals, and he got upended going for an offensive rebound. And he landed square on his tailbone, and he went out to the locker room, and he came back and he finished that game.
Yeah.
And so he's tough. There's something that you said about the Warriors. I'm not sure if you remember it, but I remembered it because it was good. And you said what you liked about them was, yes, they're dominant, but they dominate their skills. It's not all physicality. It's not explosiveness or athleticism.
It's playing the game in a smart manner.
But not even their intelligence. You look at how they put points on the board. It's great passing. It's great shooting. Great dribbling.
Yes.
The fundamentals of basketball, and that I cannot dispute. I will give you that. I've never seen a team as dominant based off just pure fundamentals.
It sort of reminds me of those old Knicks teams that Walt
Red
Frazier,
Holzman? Yeah. Willis Reed, yeah.
Willis Reed. You know, the amount of teamwork that, you know, you watch Draymond Green, and he's probably rightfully so. He doesn't look for his shot. He's looking for his shooters cutting behind screens, whatever they're doing. They're constantly moving. They post up in order to get guys cutting to the bucket. You know, they really. I think it's smart the way that they run their offense because it's, you know, game one. Let's think of game one of the series.
Yep.
They almost lost that game. Probably should have, depending upon.
No, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair statement.
And a lot of that had to do with Durant reverting to his old ways.
Yeah, the OKC.
You know, those turnaround fadeaways they're not really they weren't good shots. But when Durant goes to his strength is facing up, dribbling, 1-2 dribbles, pull up. No one can stop that. But since game one, he changed. He changed up. He became more of a distributor. You know, he started taking better shots. Game three, he essentially saved them, bailed them out in that first half. It's incredible. Oh, I see. Durant was named Finals MVP again.
What do you think of that? I'll be the first to say I would have gone with Steph Curry this time.
You could definitely. I would be
because as good as Durant was in Game 3, and that was an incredible performance. He did he was destroyed in Game 1. LeBron put a show on up against him.
Oh, absolutely.
And Steph Curry was as impressive, or at least in my eyes, in Game 4 as Durant was in Game 3. I would have gone with Steph Curry for this. But you get the all-round package of Kevin Durant. We saw incredible defense from him in this game down the stretch. Where do you rank them all time? Do you put them right up there with the Bulls of the 90s and the Celtics of the 60s and the Lakers of the 80s?
I don't think that they could compete with the Bulls of the 90s just because no one there is going to... Steph, Clay, they're not going to be able to stop Jordan. Pippen will probably, you know, he'd do a reasonably good job on Durant.
Reasonably good job. Probably the best job you can ask a player to do.
Well, he'd be among the best players that could. Anybody's going to have a chance with Durant. I wouldn't put them up to that level. I think that they're an excellent team, though, and I think that they would give. I think that they would give that Magic-led team, the Lakers from the 80s and the Celtics, they would definitely give them a challenge. You know, without getting into and really digging into all of this stuff.
Writing a book about it.
Which you have. They're definitely... look, they're a good team. And...
keep going, sorry.
This era is a little... This is a kind of a screwy era we're in now, where teams... There seems like there's more of an impetus to just tank. You know, teams are less likely to fight and try.
But they're marketing it that way. They're trying to sell it like this is a good thing.
Trying to, I guess, like maybe you get lucky and end up like the Sixers. I
don't even think they got lucky. The Sixers got lucky. They just tanked for 5-6 years, and they ended up getting they used two of their picks, and the players finally turned out. But for every Embiid, there's an Okafor. For every Ben Simmons, there's a Fultz. I mean, that wasn't indicative of the tanking process work. It was just by a process of elimination. That might be the best way to describe it.
I just think it's always a good idea if you're in a competitive arena, sports. You know, trying to win is usually you can't go wrong.
I much prefer the Celtics and Lakers philosophy on it. Create the culture and good things will happen, as opposed to let's just lose as much as possible and be rewarded for it. That to me annoys me.
I love the way that the Warriors have, aside from Kevin Durant, they've all been players they've drafted. You know, you mentioned Iggy, or he doesn't like to be called Iggy, so Andre Iguodala.
He doesn't like to be called Iggy.
Well, that's what Van Gundy said in the last game.
Sorry.
He's obviously the expert, and we should defer to him in all matters. But I really appreciate the fact that most of those guys, the top three, Curry, Clay, and Draymond, they're all homegrown.
Not
organization. They're from the.
It's
they've
organic.
been drafted there.
It's organic. I didn't like the way that Durant got there. I think most basketball people that appreciate the game didn't like that.
Well, that's the era we're in now, and LeBron set the.
Oh yeah, he created that.
He created this.
I couldn't care less for him. I'm just saying, from a basketball fan standpoint, it did create the league very, very top heavy.
Well, how do you compete? You got Steph Curry, who's already one of the best players in the game.
Sure.
You add Durant to that, so you got 2 MVP guys. Clay he'd be a good number one guy on a lot of teams.
I think he has the talent, and I know you.
Well, he showed it this year.
Yeah, I think he has the talent. I know you disagree with me, to be a top 5 player in the NBA. If he's given the opportunity where he is the first, second, and third option, like if you put him on Sacramento, and they somehow become a playoff team based off what he can do offensively, because what he also does on the defensive end of the court. He would be at that point one of the best two-way players in the league.
Well, I've changed my mind a bit because seeing him in the playoffs, and my issue was he reminded me a lot of Reggie Miller up until.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's great. Okay. But Reggie was a guy who he worked off of screens. He needed Mark Jackson. He needed his point guard to get him the rock in the spots where he'd be. He
needed those big bodies, the Davises and Rick Smiths and those guys setting those screens.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great offense. You know? But now he's really developed his dribble drive game. And he's showing that he can get his own shots too. He showed that very clearly. I think it was Game 2. Game 2, really, he was. I remember that play. He got the ball on the break, and
he just went straight into a three.
Well, he went left, crossed over right,
but you knew where he wanted to go straight away,
and I think turned the defender around,
and the defender was draped all over him.
Yeah, George Hill, I believe.
I don't know who it was. But they knew it was coming.
Yeah. Well, you know where he wants to go.
But he still buried it on the break. That was
to me, I was like, wow, this guy's becoming like his own, he's becoming a force, like where he could get his own shot now. And this is your number 3 guy.
Yeah, we said that. But when Steph Curry started to take it off today, I said to you, now all of a sudden you've got to really worry about Steph Curry, because he could put 40 on him. This is in the first quarter. Then you got to worry about Durant as your second option, and if that's not bad enough, then you got Klay Thompson as your third option. So, wow, seriously,
there's just.
But you asked the question. You asked the question as to how you compete with this team.
Okay.
We just saw Houston push him to 7.
That's true.
And had they had Chris Paul healthy, I don't like using excuses, but losing Chris Paul is it's not like losing Iguodala.
No.
We're talking about one of the top 5 point guards in the league.
Game 5, 2 more games to go.
Yep.
One of your key players goes down.
And the fact that the Rockets had double-digit leads in both Game 6 and Game 7, you don't think in one of the games, especially Game 7 at home, if you have Chris Paul to right the ship a little bit and calm everybody down and take over when needed, that they could have gotten at least one of those games. I'll be happy to say that would happen.
What do you have any idea what rank Houston came in the regular season defensively?
No idea. I know it was fairly high.
I think they were top 5.
Yes.
And they pushed the Warriors to a Game 7.
Okay, so this is my point altogether, right? This is why I'm reluctant to say that they're in the. I think their resume speaks for themselves. 1 game away from a 4-peat.
We're talking about the Warriors or the Rockets?
No, I'm talking about the Warriors.
Okay.
But the eye test, when I look at them, and I've said this multiple times to you and also on the podcast, is I look at them and I think they have no counter. What they do is what they do. And they're so good at it, they don't have to vary it. But if they were to come up against a team that can defend, like Memphis the first time around, or Cleveland in 2016, or even in 2015 with Dellavedova and Mozgov starting, and it's not like they had a big 3 alongside. The next best players were Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith, and of course you had LeBron going off. So if you can slow it down, then the Warriors, they can be beaten.
Well, we were talking about this during the game. Like, I think a big body who could just dominate them down low would give them trouble. You know, sure. I think Draymond Green and Kevin Durant have played excellent defense. Boxing out, grabbing rebounds. They still get killed on the boards, but these guys. You think Draymond's 6'8"? I think he's a little shorter than that. But
you said he was 6'5".
Well,
man, come on.
Maybe I was a little off.
6'5".
Regardless, he's undersized. He's undersized against pretty much every matchup.
Okay.
Kevin Durant, you mentioned that he's similar build to KG.
A very young KG.
But these guys.
Wait, does Kevin Garnett get offended if we call him KG, or is that just an Iguodala thing?
Oh well,
okay.
I didn't call him AI.
There you go.
So they've really done a good job, but they haven't faced like a traditional center. Like what would Shaq do to these guys? What would Olajuwon do to these guys?
What would David Robinson do?
What
would Patrick Ewing do?
The game has evolved so much. Yeah. So you mentioned bringing up where do they rank all time? Well, we'd have to see what they would do with against, let's say Olajuwon in 96. No, sorry, 95, right. Where he goes up and he takes out 3 of the best players of the generation
at that position.
At his position. This isn't switches. These are guys covering him. These are great players.
Wait, so you're telling me that the players actually fought over screens back then? So,
shock.
So if Olajuwon was guarding Shaq back then, right? Yeah. This is how ridiculous this is with LeBron switches. If Olajuwon was guarding Shaq, and Nick Anderson sets a back screen on Olajuwon for Shaq, that Olajuwon should just switch off and let Sam Cassell guard Shaq. Yeah. That's essentially what we saw. Anyway, sorry, I thought that was funny. Keep going. With the Olajuwon. Yeah, look, Olajuwon would kill him. There's no question about it. Olajuwon killed everybody.
But this is the state of the game now.
Yeah.
It's a track meet. You get up and down. I was very impressed with what Houston did because they went out. They were a high-scoring team, but they also played good defense. And their defense, D'Antoni doesn't have a reputation of even having a defensive playbook. But yet, they went out. And you got guys like P.J. Tucker. Yeah. Trevor Ariza is a good defender. Capella. Chris Paul. Yeah. Who else can I repeat? I don't know. That was the thing. Like these guys, Houston all year, high scoring. But they had played great defense at the same time. And that's my complaint, my beef about LeBron is he did not set a defensive...
Oh yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah. If anybody watched the game and says otherwise, then they're delusional. And if anybody says otherwise, they clearly didn't watch the games.
I personally think that if LeBron, maybe he doesn't have help, but I also think he doesn't let people do. I'm saying maybe. I'm not saying.
Look, no,
it's the truth.
I will buy that his supporting cast is nowhere near as good as Kevin Durant's.
But we don't know because they don't get the chance to do what they do.
But in all fairness, from a talent standpoint, yes, Kevin Love is talented. But George Hill is not a Steph Curry, for example. So, but to me, that's not an excuse. Because he's the reason why they've got him. Look, he had Dwayne Wade. He had Chris Bosh. He had Ray Allen in his twilight of his career. But still effective.
Well, won Game 6 for them.
Yeah, I know. And then without that, then guess what? His record's 2-7 in finals. And then in Cleveland, he had Kyrie Irving. He had Kevin Love. And all these players, everyone wants to throw dirt at J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson. Those are players that he insisted that they give huge money to. So whose fault is this?
Well, didn't you say that he gets a cut of what his agent makes off of J.R.'s and Tristan's?
Well, they've got the same agent. So the way that works is...
it's like a referral fee or something?
I think it's a little bit more concrete than that.
Well, it would be.
Obviously, the agent gets a commission for whatever J.R. Smith or Tristan Thompson makes, because that's how he stays in business. But LeBron also gets a commission as well because his name is of influence, so players see...
Well, it's essentially a referral fee, which is kind of like Well, that kind of implicates...
Talk about a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But regardless...
He's not the GM of the team, obviously.
Oh, clearly not, no. So, all I'm saying is, yes, it's obvious that there is a disparity in terms of talent. And if you just look at Kevin Durant, and you look at LeBron James, and you look at who's... But let's also be completely honest and say that LeBron is the reason that this team is currently constructed the way that it is. And I will also give him absolutely no sympathy because he had a guy in Kyrie Irving. And everyone says that, Kyrie Irving wanted to spread his wings and see how good he was going to be. That's a load of garbage.
That's a total red flag.
Because Kyrie Irving was very happy there until he found out that LeBron would try to get him traded for Chris Paul. Why does that not get talked about? So, I mean, Kyrie Irving obviously has a lot of pride. We see him play with a lot of pride.
That was such a bombshell at the beginning of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Just like, I can't believe this guy actually does not want to play with LeBron. I mean,
I couldn't believe he had the balls to get up and say it. I loved him for it. I loved it.
I thought it was... But that just... That leads you back to, all right, he doesn't want to play with LeBron. How bad is it?
Yeah. Like, as
this
people
means
say,
he's made his bed. Now he's got... He made his bed. Now he's got to lie in it.
Yeah.
And
but as people try to use that as now an excuse for LeBron, no, not a chance. LeBron caused that. And
maybe it was in a backhanded sense. But yeah, that really wrecked their chances. And the fact that they were able to get here... You got to look at Toronto, though.
Look at Toronto. Once again, let's be totally honest, right? Look at the teams they went through. I mean, they struggled mightily against the Pacers.
Yeah, the team that they swept last year.
Yeah, well,
Paul George.
Paul George. And Oladipo played great in Game 1, and he also played very good in Game 6. But beyond that, he was terrible. It was absolutely shocking. And it was, you saw role players having the games of their lives and up against LeBron. And they barely survived in 7 games. And then you saw the Raptors, as you just said.
They got to blow that team up.
Oh, yeah, that's a disgrace. And then you saw the Celtics, who were missing, at least at the start of the season, their 2 best players. They were missing both of those guys. Yes, they've got the best coach in basketball. I've got no hesitation in saying that. But then they're clearly missing a lot of talent. Had they have either one of those guys, I think they win. I think they would have gone through to the finals.
What the Celtics did was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, but...
And that's coming from a Lakers fan, right?
Well, it's
the guy that wouldn't even buy NBA 2K.
I think it was 9.
Yeah,
the one with KG on the cover. I wouldn't buy that.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is I'm not going to use that as an excuse because he's the one causing it. Now, had it have been just terrible mismanagement, had the Cavaliers just decided to trade their guys for no reason to get draft picks for the future or whatever, or to clear up cap room, then sure, I would buy that argument in a heartbeat. But I'm not going to give him a pass when he's the one that caused that.
Well, that's the thing. You
if somebody smokes every day of their life and they get unwell, sure, we feel a little bit of sympathy for him. But at the same time, we're like, well, you kind of knew the risk when you were doing it. You kind of caused it.
Right.
So, look, I don't want to turn this into an entire LeBron fest, but this is the reason why I dropped him out of the top, my Mount Rushmore. If you think back to 2016, after these finals, I had him as a top small forward of all time. I had him in my top 4 of all time. And then he dropped out because of what he did in the 2017 finals. And
failing to play defense on Durant.
Yes, and just being willing to let Tristan Thompson or
Kevin Love.
Yeah, those guys are good defenders, but they're not good perimeter defenders. And for him to be so willing to allow these guys get, it's basically leading him to. It's an unwinnable situation for them.
And this is Game 3 at home. You're down.
You're talking about last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last year, 2017.
You're up in that game. You had to win it.
You were what was it at 7 points?
Something like that.
They had a significant lead
like
in the last
5
minutes of the game.
It was less than that. It was like last 2 minutes.
Well,
of the game. Yeah.
They had a lead.
Yep.
And down the stretch, switches off readily. Like
he was so eager. They weren't even proper screens.
Oh, it's a screen, so that means I must switch.
A lot of these were even slip screens. They weren't even regular screens. And you could, and it wasn't even just on the defensive end. Also on the offensive end, he had that driving lane. He decided to dish it out to despite what people say, watched the play, and Kyle Korver was not wide open from the corner. He had two guys on him running at him.
Well, Curry was close enough to at least bother the shot.
Yeah, and then it was another
But
guy.
Draymond Green had how many fouls?
5, I believe.
He had 5, at least 4.
I'm pretty sure it was 5 because I remember there was a big reaction. He should have at least gone to the
Well,
line.
you got Draymond on the move, no one else in the area, no one else of consequence. He could have easily forced, drawn the foul, put some pressure on the Warriors. And I know your favorite, who's the reporter on, who say, he's the hugest LeBron homer of all time.
You have to narrow it down. There's a lot of them.
Well, the guy with the neck beard.
Nick Wright.
Nick Wright. I forgot his name, but he's like,
That's the only reason I remember it, because you told me about the neck beard. I didn't even notice it.
Oh, well, whatever
Whatever
he's hiding, I don't know, but
HGH?
it's certainly not a tumor on his jaw like a certain,
LeBron James.
yeah. Oh, yeah, he's like, you're going to throw out to the highest percentage shot. Well, maybe it is a high percentage shot, but
If he's open.
But how about you put pressure? You maybe get the 6th foul on Draymond Green, who makes that offense go. It was a cop out in my mind. And
Just like today was a cop out. Just when he bails out of screens and not bails out of screen, but bails out of a defensive matchup. I mean, even here's what was the most disturbing part about this is even without screens, he's pathetic defensively. He was guarding Steph Curry away from the ball. You know the play I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
He was guarding Steph Curry away from the ball.
not even looking at him.
Not even looking at him. A good 3 steps away. Steph Curry's just like, are you kidding me? He just runs to the
Right
corner.
to the corner.
Just almost casually jogs, probably 75% of a run. Just jogs to the corner, catches and shoots.
Yeah.
Drills it.
Bang, bang.
LeBron's clueless. He's absolutely clueless. He's always looking for that highlight play. And once again, people are going to look at this, and if you're a LeBron fan, and they're going to say, "Oh, you're just a hater." It's frustration because I know how good he can be. We've seen those glimpses. Game 1, if this entire series, actually, we can even summarize it. The first 2 games of this series summarized his career and all the frustrations real fans have of him. Is we see these glimpses of amazing play, and they're not backed up. It's either one or the other. It's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. We see amazing, and then we see frustrating. We see him not even getting back on defense. We see him crying. We see him whinging. We see him okay.
Gesticulating.
There was one thing that circulated around the internet, and a few people messaged me about it. It was a image, or it was a video of him asking Tyronn Lue after in the end of game 1, did we have a timeout? And then obviously the reference to J.R. Smith getting the offensive rebound, not putting a shot up or calling timeout. And when he found out that they didn't have a timeout, just put his head in his hands, and it looked like he was crying, right? And people were like, they felt for him.
This was after the play.
It was when it was going into overtime. It was in that period of that break, right?
Yeah.
And people were feeling for him like, well, no wonder he's upset. There's no chance he can possibly come back from this, blah, blah, blah. But then it got me thinking, and I haven't done a podcast since because I've been busy, but it got me thinking. I'm glad that I reminded myself. How the hell do you think the San Antonio Spurs recovered after what happened with Ray Allen? And they recovered, and they were at least competitive, big time, in Game 7. And you know what? They lost Game 7. What did they do the next year? They went through, they tore up the league, and they beat the LeBron James-led Miami Heat in a record margin. They set the record straight. It was almost as bad as what we just saw. Maybe it was even worse. The last 3 games of that series definitely were.
Oh, yeah.
So, the point that I'm making is there's so many excuses for this guy that it makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me hard to even respect him because I watch him. I want to appreciate him because he is a great player.
Yes.
But at the same time, I get so sick to death of the double standards. And to sum it up, I'm a fan of LeBron James, a player. I am not a fan of his fans, and because they want him to be considered the greatest, they have to lower the bar for him. and they have to attack other players and say, "Oh, what's Jordan's record without Pippen?" Or well, Magic Johnson only played 11 seasons. Why is that? Or there's plenty of reasons. Look it up. For starters.
Oh, HIV.
Yeah, or
Jordan's father dying.
They're getting murdered, not even
murdered.
dying.
Yes, Well, no, he was tired of the game.
Yeah, LeBron was never tired.
LeBron's
except for Game 5. Except for Game 5 of the conference finals, right? But why does he just go and take a nap? Anyway, all in all, were you satisfied with this season?
For who?
Just as a fan of the game.
Well, the playoffs this year were,
the
in
first
comparison to last year.
Yeah, that's not saying much. So last year was pathetic, but
I thought it was pretty good. I really enjoyed. Well, we did a podcast, I think, or at least we talked about the lead up to the conference finals, and I remember telling you or saying that the Cavs are a safe pick to make it to the finals, but I can't wait to see what Brad Stevens has in store.
Yep.
And that series, it was a bit. The home team pretty much won every game except for Game 7.
They'll blowouts all the way through.
But it was really great to see the way that the young guys from the Celtics responded, and they look like they got a very bright future.
Sure. Yep.
Houston and the Warriors, that was a hell of a series.
Mm-hmm.
I loved the fight. The grit. Those were slugfests.
The Game 4 victory for the Rockets, that was a classic.
It was just it was like, wow, this is like old school. This is
punch him in the mouth.
Yeah, this is a battle, war.
I wouldn't go that far, but it was from a basketball
modern standards.
From a basketball standpoint, yes.
Yeah, it was tough, hard fought, intense.
Yeah.
So those were excellent. This finals, obviously, but Game 1, that was a tough call. It was the right call, but
Which call are you talking?
The charge block.
I did look. I had a problem with it.
You can make an argument that it was.
It wasn't even whether it was a charge or a block. It was the fact that they overturned it.
That was a bit of a surprise
because it had to be fairly conclusive to overturn it, and it definitely wasn't that.
Well, he was moving, but
you don't have to be stationary for it.
I honestly felt like Vegas was going to call it in.
Yeah,
like the money was on the line or something. Like it was
I felt like that.
It felt like that.
And they even and this is the frustration that fans have with this. And Van Gundy, I think it was, nailed it. He's nailed it before. He said, "Why can we review that but not other stuff?"
True.
Because we see so many more egregious things happen in the last 2 minutes, but they can't be reviewed.
It seems like we should do the NFL thing and have coaches with 2 flags.
Sure, but why not? But in tennis, you've got to, put the responsibility onto the coaches, and then if they don't have any challenges, then if they don't, that's their own fault for wasting them.
I think that the NBA should add another referee.
Or do the challenge.
I think you should do both.
Sure.
We're talking about big humans moving at very fast speed. Things happen quickly. It's very difficult to get these things right. I think we should. Yeah, they've got the review center in Secaucus, whatever the hell. But put at least one more ref out there. Let's look at performance, some sort of performance for these refs. Maybe not. I'm not saying we should have fans involved.
But you can tell when they screw it up. And this last 2 minute report.
The last 2 minute report, it doesn't really accomplish much.
It has more frustration than anything. Here's why I'm not in favour of the fourth ref. It may work. I mean, I wouldn't lose sleep if they were going to try it. But what makes me think it won't work is these calls that they are missing. Like the one that comes to my mind is the Paul George one at the end of the Utah series, where he's clearly hit as he's going up for the 3. They're down by 3. He goes up for the shot. Head fakes Gobert. Goes up. He doesn't do a backflip and get kicked in the face or anything. He's not Kevin Love leaning into it or anything like that. He just goes up for the shot. Gobert hits him, and it's so bad that the coach Snyder for Utah, when he sees it, he puts his head in his hands because he knows it's a foul, and the refs don't call it. Now, if 3 of them don't see it, First of all, how do 3 not see it? They all obviously do see it, because what are they watching at that point? Let me finish.
Yeah.
So if they're not watching that, then what are they watching? We're talking about the actual shooter with the ball in his hands. It's not an off the ball thing. It's like 3 blind mice. So to me, it's like, well, if 3 of them can't see it, then they obviously 3 of them are seeing it. Is what I'm saying. So that's not the issue. It's the issue that refs have too much leeway. They can decide whether something's a foul on it.
Oh, I think for me, I think back to the Houston where there were a couple plays. I mean, Harden he's made a living at the free throw line and flopping and drawing fouls,
head snapping back. Yeah,
but there were a couple plays. Like I think there was a shot that he made. Should have been a 4-point play.
Oh yeah, he was
on the ground.
You're talking about and then of course it turns into a turnover. There was about 10 of those in the game 7. This is game 7 at home, by the way, and it was hard to watch. Because how are they missing all these? These are the guys that are actually shooting the ball. It's not, if it's off the ball, something trivial off the ball, I can sort of see not all the refs seeing it. But the guy's got the ball in his hands, all their attention's really on him. And for all 3 of them to miss it, they're not all missing it. If they're all missing it, then they're blind. They are actually legally blind if they are all missing it. But
I think it might have had to do with maybe it's sort
Vegas
of
calling it in.
No, well, maybe, but I was wondering if it was maybe sending a message that we're not going to put up with your bullshit. This was a kind of a common talking point last year with Harden, like jumping into foul, creating contact. I used to hate when he'd come up, roll off a screen, and the defender trying to stay attached, and he'd.
Durant does that, dude. Kevin Love does that. They get away with these things.
Not to the same extent.
Oh, not to the same extent. Sure, not to the same extent. But if you're going to eradicate one play, first of all, if they're going to eradicate it, it's good timing to do it in Game 7 of the conference finals to stop calling.
I was just thinking, are they trying to send a message at this stage? Like, we're not going to let...
Once again, what terrible timing, though.
Late.
But the Game 7 of the conference... Well, really the finals.
Yeah.
Of the team that was going to win that was clearly going to win the championship. What terrible timing to start doing that. But that's the point.
I don't know what. Look, there's got to be a method, some sort of mechanism, or some sort of way that these games. Because I've been watching makeup calls for a long time.
Sure.
You've seen this back in the '80s, and I remember thinking, all right, bad call, you'll get it back on the refs will gift it to you. I remember watching Laker games and think, oh yeah,
makeup call.
There'll be a makeup call, and that's fine. But I don't know. There must be a mechanism. I believe there is.
Do you think the league's rigged?
There were some times when I actually had that question. I'd like to believe it's not, but
what's in your heart? I would like to believe it too. I mean, I've written a book about it. I do a podcast about it. Hell, the name of it is "I Still Love This Game." So obviously, I don't want to admit that. But in my mind, I think it's manipulated.
I think that it probably is. I think there is something to it.
And I think what is likely going to happen, or is going to have to happen for the league to actually fix it up, is something akin to the steroid era in baseball. It's going to have to go before Congress. It's going to have to go to that level before the league actually takes it seriously. I think
that's a tough one, because what we're talking about, like I mentioned, Vegas calling it in. We're talking about big money. Like, there's now going to be betting in Vegas.
Yeah, I know. And then if it turns out that there's actual manipulation of games, and people are betting money legally, it's different if they're betting it illegally. But if they're betting it legally, there could be massive repercussions for that.
Oh well, I mean, I wouldn't.
The great thing about all that idiot Adam Silver could be thrown in jail. That would be fantastic. I would happily have endured all these years of him being a terrible commissioner.
Do you think he's worse than Stern?
Yes, I do think that. I don't think Stern was great, but I think Adam Silver has let the league disintegrate into the point where players don't even care anymore. Players get away with too much.
So how does he make that happen? How is the commissioner causing this environment?
Because he lets them get away with everything. He
Like
what? Okay, look at the. We were talking about this during the game. Look at what Draymond Green's able to get away with on the court. in terms of his antics.
Yelling.
And you brought up Dennis Rodman, and I said, well, hold on a second. I've watched some games on YouTube, some entire series of the 97 and 98 playoffs, where Rodman would get technicals for just
breathing on at the refs.
There was one game against the Hawks where he was teed up for Mutombo throws an elbow at him. Rodman retaliates with an elbow to his back. They both get double technicals. Rodman turns around to the crowd, throws his hands up in exasperation, and they give him another technical for that in the second quarter. The Bulls have to go on and win the game without him. They do.
Yeah.
And that Hawks team was a pretty good team, but that could have really influenced the entire series.
Which was that Dominique? And
No, that was Mutombo and Christian Laettner and Steve Smith, Mookie Blaylock.
Oh, right, yeah. Dominique was in the 80s more.
Early 90s as well.
90s.
So
Mookie Blaylock, you said, too,
yes,
right?
he was there as well. So that was not a bad Hawks team. But the point that I'm making is David Stern, I mean, you look at just the biggest thing that I look at is Zaza Pachulia. And that kind of nonsense. And when you've got a player diving at players' knees or putting their feet underneath their legs and consistently doing it. I made a video of him doing it up to 10 times. And yes, some of that was under David Stern's rule as well. So for being fair. But Adam Silver is the one held accountable for now because well, let me finish. Because that's where he's in the position of power now.
You know, I just thought of something.
Sure. I should be commissioner. No.
How many players have... We have barely seen this whole flopping rule. You know, they were... When was the last time we saw one of those?
I don't know. Probably when Adam Silver came in.
Well, no, I mean, it's fairly recent, but I remember
there was
very few of those.
Yeah, there was meant to be a fine or whatever.
Yeah, they're not really enforcing that very well.
I think the players have too much power now. I really do think that. And it's going to be an ugly, ugly situation that they could end up ruining the league.
Okay, well...
Because play... Look, we were talking about how do you sell a product where the players just cry over every small thing? Let's be honest, these players are paid tens of millions of dollars to play a sport. We want to talk about privilege. They are the extreme privilege of society. They're playing a game and getting paid for it. It's so handsome. Yeah, it's so handsomely.
Yeah.
And yet they cannot handle small things like a missed foul call without acting like that. Imagine if you were acted that way if you were a police officer. Or you know what I mean? The reaction that people would have towards you, throwing tantrums constantly over such small things like a missed foul call.
So what do you think? So what are you saying?
That he's too soft, and the players know that he's soft, and they look at the way that the players attack referees now. Like they get right up in their face, and
you don't think that's deserved?
No, of course not. Now if there's a missed call, you can be professional about it. You're meant to be a professional athlete. Be professional about it. You don't have to get up and call someone a mother effer. Or scream
and wave your arms and go, what?
Yeah, exactly. Or put your head right in their face or show... It's not even showing them up. It's actually almost physically intimidating. If you saw a male doing that to a female, you would think, oh, sexism, right? But... Oh, patriarchy. And... But when these players do it, and it's like, oh, well, is that deserved or not? The fact that it's even...
He's very emotional.
Yeah, he's going through a bad time in his life. No, but it's annoying because it's hard to watch. Because it's not just one or two isolated situations. You can pick out any game and you'll see this. Draymond Green's are worse at it. Kevin Durant's not far behind him.
Oh, LeBron as well.
Yeah, LeBron will... look, it's just...
I think some of it is actually sort of acting as well to sort of sell a call. And
I know, but at the same time, it doesn't do you any favors. It actually hurts the league. It hurts the league big time because it's going to get to a point where fans of the game are going to say, "I can't watch this. This is hard to actually watch because these guys are just glorified crybabies out there." And it's not even like a Bill Walton or something turning around and complaining. Well, as I said, it's throwing aggressive tantrums in front of millions of people when you're trying to promote the sport of basketball.
So what do you say? Well, wouldn't like
suspend these guys? Suspend them. Kick them out of the games.
So like enforcing the flopping rules would probably
without question. And also when you have a guy like Zaza Pachulia, who's essentially the closest thing to an NBA hitman that you can possibly imagine, getting away with it and going with
suspend him, huh?
I'd kick him out of the league.
Well, I think you got to do like suspensions, like 10-game suspension or something.
No. He's done it so many times. It's gotten to the point, and if he's that clumsy, then what's he doing in the league in the first place? These guys are think of how many millions of people play basketball, and there's about 400 that play in the NBA, the very top 400. So you're talking about some of the greatest athletes in the world, and we're meant to think that, just because Russell Westbrook's there and he magically falls over, that nobody's touched him, right? He just, there's a knee, let me just go for it. That he's
that looked like such a wrestling maneuver.
That was pretty bad, right? And the fact that people try to brush that off, he's just clumsy and he just trips over his own feet. Give me a break.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, and if it's happened 10 times, if it happened once.
Well, that's where you gotta start with suspensions. You don't just obviously the horse is bolted.
But with him, I would immediately get rid of him because there's such a history.
Well, they should have been doing this for a while now. I think what you're saying is that it's been this sort of permissive atmosphere where they just sort of let these things go when they should have been, dude, take a seat for a game. Next time, 3.
What did they do with Kobe?
5. He had to sit.
Yeah, right? I know, that's my point. And this is why I think David Stern was a better commissioner. I'm not saying David Stern was a great commissioner, but I'm saying
he did really well.
Yeah. Right? Well, in terms of
growing the brand.
Without question. Shit. But he also had Michael Jordan too.
Well, Larry Bird and Magic helped as well.
Along with and Jordan took it to the next level.
Yeah.
But look at what he did with Kobe. Kobe was going up. He'd get his shot blocked, and he'd put flail out. No, it was one of the
blatant. Pretty much Ginobili, right?
To multiple guys. He did it to quite a few people, and David Stern was having none of it. He knew what he was doing.
Well, then what about natural kicking motion in 2016? Oklahoma City, and then in the finals,
Wait! Did you say a natural kicking motion?
That's what Draymond called it, the natural kicking motion. So he gets.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new name for the podcast: the natural kicking.
You never heard that before? No. I guess you don't spend enough time on Reddit. Come on.
Clearly not, man. Look, that was as bad as you could imagine, right? Because let me finish.
Yeah,
you're bringing that up.
No, finish.
It's not my show or anything, right? No, but you brought up that he kicks Steven Adams square in the nuts.
It wasn't more than once, right?
I can't remember, but he kicks him. Yeah, I think you're right now. I can't remember offhand, but it was Game 3. The Warriors are up 2 games. The Thunder were up 2 games to 1 at the end of that game. Completely blown out the Thunder. There's a good chance without Draymond Green, which should have been suspended multiple games for that one, because there's no way that
at least 1 game.
No, I would have given multiple for that one, or maybe not in the playoffs, but if it was a regular season, yeah. Anyway, so
it looked pretty.
It was, you can't defend that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it looks like the Thunder are about to go up 3 games to 1 without Draymond Green, right? We'd all agree that Draymond Green is a valuable player to the
especially at that point.
Yeah, to the Warriors. For whatever reason, it could have possibly have been that the fact that if the Warriors go down 3 games to 1, the series is essentially over, as most people would think, right? So they didn't suspend him because they wanted the series to go.
They were already down.
No, they were down 2 games to 1. Heading into Game 4, they did eventually go down 3 games to 1, but they wanted to give the Warriors the best chance possible to tie the series at 2 and then get a longer series out of it.
Okay.
This is what really I can't defend this. I would love to defend this and say no, it's not rigged or no, it's not manipulated. But when you see decisions like this, everybody knows it. Even the diehard fans like myself have to admit that this is phony. It's bogus. Then you fast forward, because I remember saying this. I remember making a post about this, and I said, what would have happened when they decided not to suspend Green for that kick? What would have happened had he kicked LeBron James? What would have happened? And then you fast forward to all of a sudden the Warriors now are up 3-1 in the NBA Finals up against the Cavs. Less than 2 weeks after what I said, if you're going to talk about natural stuff, LeBron's standing over the top of him. Green stands up and sort of tries to push him. And believe me, I would never.
Why would you step over a man like that?
Yeah, but I would never defend Draymond Green because I'm not a fan of his. I'm also not a fan of LeBron's, but that's not the point. The fact is, I'm not a Warriors fan, so I'm not defending this. But LeBron is standing over him. Draymond Green gets up, pushes him as he gets up.
Gives him a nut tap along.
The shorts are baggy, man.
Yeah,
he probably doesn't even make any contact with anything but the shorts.
Not at all.
And then, because the Warriors are up 3-1, it couldn't be from the action because we just saw an action a million times worse go unpunished in terms of game suspension. I think you're fine. And then they suspend him for that. And then you compare that to what Zaza Pachulia gets away with. It's like, man, this is unbelievable.
I don't know if
it's
you
a
call
joke.
that.
It's an absolute joke.
I'm not sure. I can't say with any certainty that it's intentional, but it certainly is.
What's intentional?
You know,
the nut kicking?
No, who to punt it? From the league office.
That's got to be because they wanted to have extended series in both those situations. Yeah, and now look.
I will say it could be.
It's not the defining factor in those series going long because obviously
it's very important though.
Yeah, because LeBron obviously still had to score 40, as did Kyrie in Game 5. Both of them scored 40, and so obviously those have to happen. But it impacts it. It gives it a better chance for Cleveland to extend the series. Well, it doesn't guarantee it, and that's why I say it's manipulated but not rigged.
Well, it
definitely
just doesn't look. It looks pretty. What's the word I'm looking for here?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
random. It doesn't look good.
It seems random in a
It's
sense.
not random at all, that because it always points to the same thing. It always points to extending the series or protecting a certain player.
It's like at best case scenario, it looks like incompetence to me.
No, but I think they try to disguise it as incompetence because they will come down so
best
heavy.
Case.
Because, and I'm not defending him either, but they will come down so hard on someone like Donald Sterling for comments that are made. So if they have the competence to do that, then they also have the competence to come down on others as well.
Like who?
Like Draymond Green, like Zaza Pachulia, like whoever.
Well, Donald Sterling, I mean, they wanted him gone. The league office wanted him gone from a long time because of his racist.
Yeah, I get that. As I said, I'm not defending that, but I'm saying they showed competence to get rid of him if they needed to do so. And then as soon as they had the evidence to do so or the justification to do so, they did it.
But it's a different situation because you're talking about one's in the action game time, and one is a business decision.
I think they're both the same. I think they're
not the same because one is like, like I said, in the moment, whereas the other one's a long-term series of actions that
sure
negative.
Okay, but the decision to whether to suspend somebody is not a split-second decision. It goes to the league office, and they're able to make that decision. So the point with Draymond Green getting suspended or not getting suspended, or Zaza Pachulia not getting suspended, so they've shown the as I said, the decision-making process to not suspend him is not a split-second decision. They have all the resources to sit down and analyze it. I remember when the melee, the Malice in the Palace happened, and David Stern just suspended everybody indefinitely until he figured out what to do with it. And then he came out with some pretty harsh suspensions for the Pacer players, and the Piston fans got pretty much off scot-free, that entire organisation. But that's a topic for another day. The point that I'm making is it can't be incompetence because we've seen them be very competent when they want to appease. All they're doing now is trying. Look, I think you want my honest opinion about what they do. The league is now overly obsessed with making money. And yes, it is a business.
You mean ads on jerseys is
making money? I call it advertising enrichment. Everybody really wanted it, right? But they are overly obsessed with making money, and the substance isn't very good. The quality of the game isn't very good. And
it's entertainment more than ever.
Yeah, and yes, you might make more money in the short term, but sometimes it burns out. It just burns out. And if you keep burning those bridges, those real fans, those hardcore fans, they're going to stop bringing their kids to the games. They're going to, and it's not just. And one more thing because you asked me about Adam Silver, this whole idea of players unnecessarily sitting is the biggest slap in the face to fans that I've ever seen anywhere. There's no reason or justification for it, and once again, nothing was done.
We're talking about Pop in particular?
All of them. Pop, LeBron, I know he played all 82 games, but he was chasing the MVP award this year, so of course he's going to play all 82 games. But all of them, I mean, they've all done it. James Harden's done it. Chris Paul's done it. The Clippers do. And they do it. And it's not the fact that they do it, but they do it with a smile on their face, like it's the biggest FU that they're almost proud that they do it, and the league stands back and says, "Well, there's nothing we can do about it."
That's a good point, because I remember a quote that Michael Jordan made that sticks out in my mind, and he said, there's someone at that game who's worked hard to buy a ticket to see me play. Or to see the game, whatever. But, it was related to Jordan.
Right.
This might be the only game that these people get to see of me. So it's paraphrasing, obviously, but I have a responsibility to that man, to that family, whatever, sitting up there to be there and put on my best for the people.
Yeah.
And to that. It's so true, at the end of the day, it's a game. These guys are there for the enjoyment of the customers.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that, though. If I could take that Jordan quote one step further, instead of somebody working so hard, it might be the next Michael Jordan. It might be the next Allen Iverson. It might be the next whoever, right? And that might be their one opportunity. And they may be inspired by who they see. And that players... I don't think they're going to get inspired by them sitting around waving on the bench because they're deciding not to play. What kind of a role model are they setting? Look, the NBA was in such a terrible state. You mentioned this. You alluded this before Magic and Bird came. And why did Magic and Bird really turn the game around? They turned it around. That's a rhetorical question. Sorry, I know you were about to answer, but they turned it around because winning was everything. The standard was everything. Like everything else was secondary, and they held everybody to their own standard of winning, and it elevated the game
at any cost.
Yes,
do whatever needed.
Sure, yeah, whether it's Larry Bird playing with a bad back, or for half of his career, or Magic Johnson overcoming the tragic Johnson label, or whatever it was, they elevated the game in ways that you cannot imagine, and it set the and then Jordan took it to the next level. So forget marketing. People think David Stern was a marketing genius, and yeah, to an extent he was. But he was also gifted with three of the most influential players in NBA history that not only were they influential from a marketing standpoint, they were so influential that they had to have a lot of substance behind it. Whereas LeBron, he set it backwards in terms of that.
Well, it's not just him, obviously.
No, but he's been the leader. And yes, he's the one that started the super team craze. Yeah. He's the one that started the team hopping nonsense. He's the one that really embraced the flopping culture. He's the one that won't play defense. He's the one that won't even attempt to play defense. He's the one that there's every excuse under the book. He's the one that, has made excuses, himself has made excuses. I think back to the 2014 finals where he's reading off his own stats saying, well, if you told me before the finals that I would have averaged 30 and 10 and 8 and shot 40% from blah, 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 that we would be down 3 games to 1, I would have said, oh, I don't know, that's all I can do pretty much. Or the quote that you bring up where he's like, I don't want to think about the Warriors because they're too much of a headache. He's already conceded at that point. He's made it okay to lose. The same way that Shaq made it okay to be a terrible foul shooter, LeBron has made it acceptable to be a loser.
Just think about Bird, for example. When the Lakers killed them, what year was that? 84?
85.
No.
No,
85 the Lakers won.
Yeah, that's what you said, when the Lakers killed them.
first game. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Let me
right,
clarify.
Yeah. Okay. 84. Yeah.
The Lakers game 1 run all over the Celtics, and afterwards, what did Bird say?
Oh, you're talking about game 3. Okay, so the Lakers killed them in game 1, and then the Henderson steal in game 2, and they barely got out of Boston with that. And then game 3, the Lakers killed them again, and this is now in the forum. And then Bird called them a bunch of sissies. They played like a bunch of sissies.
Calls out his team, holds them accountable, and what do?
But
what was the better team coming into that game?
Oh, easily the Lakers. Without question. But you know what else he did? He led by example. He didn't just call them out. He led by example. And this is what we don't see with LeBron. He will get up there and pretend that, he'll call himself the greatest player in the world and won't play like it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Setting the example.
Yeah. So, Matt, thanks again. We're going to wrap the season up here. We're going to start season 2 with the off-season shortly. I will have a little bit of a break as I get reacclimatized to a different part of the world. Do you have any final thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I do.
Oh, damn it! Yeah, go on.
I'm thinking about these points you're bringing up around LeBron and the current state of the league office and all this stuff. And I think about these modern athletes, they have so many advantages. They've got training, they've got diet, they've got all the physiotherapy, cryotherapy, whatever the hell else.
Cryotherapy? Was that for LeBron when he loses?
Oh, yeah, I guess. Well, for advanced recovery, and yet they're taking days off.
Do they have air conditioning therapy?
Oh, well, absolutely.
I know, but yeah, I know, I agree with you. And this bringing up Bird and the Lakers, right? They had a game without air conditioning in the old Boston Garden.
That was normal.
And they just played through it. Yeah. Bird had one of the greatest games of his career. LeBron, the air conditioner breaks and he sulks. It's one of
freezes up.
Yeah, one of the greatest excuses he's had. Sorry, continue what you say.
Well, I'm just sort of putting together the difference, between the modern era. It does seem quite clear that their emphasis is more upon entertainment. Obviously in the 80s and the 90s you had the 3 of the greats, but even up into the 2000s, the competition teams lately seem more okay with losing, and the difference in the eras. Yes,
we're in the tanking era. There's no question about it. People talked about the 90s being the expansion era or whatever, or the 70s being the Coke era. This is the tanking era.
There just seemed like back in the day, you didn't really know who was going to win.
Yeah,
ahead of time.
Even when the Bulls were dominant, like when I was going out and I was looking at the '97 finals, that was on a razor's edge. That really was. There was only 2 games that were blowouts, for removing those 2 games that were blowouts, the Jazz led for most of those games that the Bulls would come back and win. So even though the Bulls were dominant, you didn't know for sure. And you had beyond the Lakers and the Jazz, you had the Sonics, you had you got the Lakers, you've got the Knicks, you had the Miami Heat, you had the Orlando Magic, you had the San Antonio Spurs with David Robinson, you had the Rockets with Olajuwon. There were so many teams that were capable of winning the title. And when we look at it now, obviously no one in the East is ready yet. We don't know how good they're going to be next year with Philly and Boston. That is exciting. But when you look at the West, you still got the Warriors, obviously, you got the Rockets, and depending on if Chris Paul leaves, and the Rockets go right back down to the pack, and you've got one team that's just so far ahead. I've got 2 more questions for you before we finish up. They're fairly short. Where do you think LeBron goes?
Well, we know he's interested in his legacy, chasing greatness.
Chasing stats? Oh, greatness. Sorry.
Well, the hashtag on his Instagram feed.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with these hashtags.
Oh, yeah, it's very important.
What does that even mean, chasing greatness?
Who knows?
Or does that mean because he's running around?
He's chasing great stats is what he's doing.
I meant chasing great players, running around. Dwayne Wade?
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving? Chasing them around?
But so that sort of limits where he's going to go. I mean, to me, he wants someplace where he can have sort of where he could step in. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuilding situation, so you got to look at...
But he's going to step in and take over.
Pretty much.
And then there's players that were once great, just like we saw Kevin Love and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, that ones that were once great, they're not going to be...
Everybody's going to have to mold their game around him unless he learns that, and this is, 15th year going into 16 if he's going to change his stripes, but to me, the two best spots where he could just step in and compete for a championship, one is Houston, two is Philly.
I don't think he's a fit for either of them. I know from a talent standpoint they would be upgraded, but basketball is an art form. Though. You need to get the players that fit. If you put,
you got to play as a team.
Yeah, if you put him alongside Ben Simmons, what kind of player does Ben Simmons turn into? If you put him alongside James Harden, what kind of player does James Harden turn into?
Oh, they become jump shooters. Except Ben Simmons can't jump shoot.
Yeah, and James Harden, what is he? Just a catch and shoot guy? We know what he's capable of.
Yeah, well, he's led a team for years now.
He should be the MVP of the league this year. Based off the previous criteria, with the exception of Russell Westbrook last year, he should be the MVP.
Well, do you think LeBron could ever do what Wilt Chamberlain did back in the day and sort of limit or confine his game and help his teammates get better?
No, I don't.
Well, he hasn't shown any signs.
That's what I'm
15
saying.
years.
If this was a conversation 10 years ago, I'd say yeah. Of course he could.
But he never did.
No. So, I mean, we're talking about, as you said, 15 years into the, for lack of a better term, the process or his legacy. And
greatness.
Yeah.
Great stats.
And even, everyone laughs at Isaiah Thomas or whatever, like not the real Isaiah Thomas, I'm talking about the new version of Isaiah Thomas. And look, what did LeBron, name me one player LeBron James has made better, outside of Mo Williams.
Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
He was an all-star before.
Yeah, I know. He was already good.
Yeah.
When did Carlos Boozer leave that team?
1 year. Yeah, I can't think of one good player. I cannot think of one player that he's actually elevated.
He's developed.
And for all the crap that Kobe gets for being a ball hog, there's always Pau Gasol. He developed Pau Gasol into a winner. Pau Gasol hadn't won a playoff game before he got to the Lakers, and Kobe turned him into a winner.
Phil helped as well.
Oh, sure, okay. Jordan turned Scottie Pippen into a winner. Yes. He turned Dennis Rodman's career around. Dennis Rodman was on the scrap heap. Magic Johnson,
Ron Harper as well.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Good player in his own right at the end of his career, but he comes in and fills a role.
And we can go back further. Bill Walton's career was on the scrap heap. Kareem's career was extended by about 7 years because of Magic Johnson. So I don't want to harp on him too much, but there is a lot of frustration there when I look at it. And I'm sick of the questions that come my way saying that he should be... The final question I have for you, based off what we just saw in the finals, everything we just talked about, what number do you have him in your top 10? Is he even in your top 10?
Oh, yeah, he's got to be in there, between 6 and 10. Probably I put Olajuwon over him.
Oh yeah, no question. I've got him too.
Olajuwon and Russell. I have both those guys ahead of him, and they're not really in my top 5.
Okay, so
borderline. So I'd probably have him around 7 or 8. He's
in the exact same spot as I started this year. So I got obviously Jordan, and I got Wilt at number 2. I know you're with me on that.
Yeah.
I got Magic at 3, Bird at 4, Russell at 5. That's my top 5, obviously. And then I've got Hakeem at 6, Kareem at 7, Duncan at 8, and then LeBron at 9, Shaq at 10, Kobe at 11. And I'll switch Kobe and Shaq around.
Yeah.
That depends on what day of the week I wake up.
Oh, I think Kobe kind of gets a knock because Shaq was so dominant, but Shaq could not. You're talking about a guy who needs to get the ball in his spots. He doesn't play defense outside of the paint and can't hit free throws. So Shaq is not a closer.
No.
He always needed the the Kobe's, the Dwayne Wade's, even LeBron at the end of his career. He always needed those guys to finish the game off.
Look. If I'm going to discount Kobe because he won with Shaq, I'm also going to discount Kareem because he won with Magic and Oscar Robertson.
Yeah, well, I'm not as I used to think Kareem was all that, but
no,
he's taken a little bit of a couple notches down.
Yeah. Anyway, Matt, pleasure as always. Thank you so much. And as I said, we'll take a small break from the show. Don't unsubscribe. This is not an idea to unsubscribe. Yeah, I'm not. But I'm talking about 2 weeks, and we'll start. Really, I know you guys have flooded my inboxes over the last 2 to 3 months as we've been doing a lot more consistent episodes. Those questions I haven't deleted. The ones that I haven't answered, that are good. I'm not going to answer the Lonzo Ball questions, but those good questions we'll be doing specific episodes. And there are some questions that I'll be doing entire episodes on. So keep an eye out for those. Tell your friends about them. Continue to share the podcast. Circulate it around. Play it at your work, whatever. Make fun of me. If you don't agree with it, send me an email, and I'll address it. But thanks so much for all your support, guys. And it was the first season. It was a very successful season. There was, some high points where we were number 2 in the sports and recreation on iTunes. That's unbelievable, considering when you see the setup that we've got here: a laptop and a condenser mic. And we were able to beat some fairly big names in the sports industry, and I'm not satisfied with that. We're gonna do bigger and better things in the next season. But thank you for your support, and take care, and you'll be hearing from me very soon. Thanks, guys.